The alarm rang through the mining station at 3 in the morning. Hana woke up fast, her heart beating hard in her chest. She had been working on asteroid K447 for 2 years now, and alarms in the middle of the night never meant good news. She pulled on her uniform and ran to the command center. Other workers were already there, staring at the screens with confused faces. The station manager, an old man named Taman, pointed at the radar display. "We got a signal," he said. "A ship signal." "But it doesn't make sense." Hana looked at the screen. The computer showed a ship coming toward them, slow and steady. The identification code flashed on the display. HSS Taijin. Her blood went cold. "That's impossible," she whispered. "The Taijin disappeared 300 years ago." Everyone knew the story. The HSS Taijin was humanity's first deep space colony ship. It left Earth with 5,000 people on board, heading to a planet in another star system. But something went wrong. The ship sent one last message saying they were going off course and then nothing. For 3 centuries it had been lost in space. "Could be a fake signal," said Ji-won, the station's engineer. "Maybe pirates trying to trick us." "No," Taman shook his head. "The code is real. I checked it 3 times. That ship is the Taijin." Hana made a decision fast. "Get the salvage team ready. We're going to board it." 2 hours later, Hana floated through space in her suit, heading toward the ghost ship. 3 other crew members came with her. Ji-won, a security officer named Bora, and a medical technician called Hyon. The Taijin grew bigger as they got closer. The ship was huge, much bigger than their small mining station. "It looks perfect," Bora said through the radio. No damage at all, she was right. The ship's hull was clean and smooth, like it had just left the factory. There were no marks from space rocks, no burn damage, nothing. It was strange. A ship floating in space for 300 years should look old and broken. They found an airlock door and Ji-won worked on opening it. The old controls still worked, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Air rushed out but then stopped. There was still pressure inside the ship. "This is really weird," Ji-won muttered. They entered the ship carefully. The lights turned on automatically, bright and white. Everything inside looked new and clean. The floors were polished. The walls were painted. Even the air smelled fresh. "Where is everyone?" Hyun asked quietly. They walked through empty corridors. The ship was silent except for the hum of working machines. They passed crew quarters with beds neatly made. They saw a cafeteria with tables set for dinner. But there were no people, no bodies, no signs of what happened. Hana led them to the bridge. The command center was dark, but the computers were still running. She sat at the captain's chair and touched the main screen. It lit up immediately, showing ship logs and navigation data. "Let me see," Ji-won said, pushing buttons and reading files. His face got more confused with each screen. According to this, the ship traveled way past its original destination. It went to the Vale Nebula. That's almost 40 light-years beyond charted space. Why would they go there? Bora asked. "I don't know," Ji-won kept reading. "But look at this. The ship turned around by itself 6 months ago. The AI brought it back on autopilot." "The AI?" Hana leaned forward.
"Can we talk to it?"
Ji-won tried several commands, but nothing happened. "It's not responding. Maybe it shut down after bringing the ship home." They explored more of the ship. In the engine room, everything was working perfectly. The power systems were stable. The life support was running. It was like the ship was waiting for its crew to come back. Finally, they reached the cargo bay. This was the largest room on the ship, designed to carry supplies and equipment for the colony. The lights here were dimmer and the air felt colder. "Look," Hyun pointed ahead. Rows and rows of metal pods filled the bay, suspended animation pods. They were the reason the colony mission could work. People would sleep during the long journey between stars, not aging, not needing food or water. Hana walked between the pods, looking at each one. They all had small windows so you could see inside. Every pod she checked was empty. "Open and empty. 5,000 pods," Bora said softly. "All empty." "Where did they go?" They kept searching, checking every pod. It took almost an hour. Then, near the back of the bay, Hyan called out, "Here, I found someone." They all ran over. One pod was different from the others. Its lights were on, green and steady. Inside the window, they could see a man. He looked about 40 years old, with short black hair and a beard. His eyes were closed, and he was breathing slowly. "He's alive." Jan checked the pod's readings. "The pod is working fine. He's in deep sleep." Hana looked at the nameplate on the pod. Commander Daehyun, ship's pilot. She looked at her team. We need to wake him up, are you sure? Ji-won asked. We don't know what happened here. Maybe there's a reason he's the only one left. He might have answers, Hana said. We need to know what happened to this ship. Hyun worked on the pod controls, following the wake-up procedure carefully. It took 10 minutes. The pod started making soft beeping sounds. The green lights changed to yellow, then to blue. Inside, the man's breathing got faster. His eyes opened. They were brown and clear but confused. He looked around, seeing the 4 people in modern spacesuits staring at him through the window. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. The pod door hissed and opened. The man tried to sit up, but he was weak. Hyun helped him, checking his pulse and temperature. Easy, Hyun said. You've been asleep a long time. Don't move too fast. The man's voice was rough and dry. How long? Hana stepped closer. Commander Daehyun, I'm Captain Hana. We found your ship. You've been gone for 300 years. Daehyun's eyes went wide. He looked shocked but not surprised. Like he had expected something like this. He grabbed Hana's arm with a weak hand. 300 years, he whispered. Then he asked a question that made everyone's blood run cold. Did we make it in time? In time for what? Hana asked. Daehyun looked at each of them, his face serious and scared. They're coming. The Devourers. They consume everything. Every world, every living thing. We went to find help. To find a way to stop them. Did the ship get back? Did the AI deliver the data? Ji-won and Bora looked at each other. Hana felt her stomach tighten. What data? What are you talking about? Daehyun tried to stand, but his legs couldn't hold him. Hyun and Bora caught him. He looked desperate, grabbing Hana's uniform. Listen to me, he said, his voice getting stronger with fear. This wasn't a colony mission. That was just the cover story. Earth detected something coming from deep space. Something old and terrible. They sent us to the Veil Nebula because there were signs of intelligent life there. We were supposed to find allies, find weapons, find anything that could help humanity survive. And did you? Hana asked quietly. Daehyun's face was pale. We found them. The Kael'thar. They were dying. Their whole empire destroyed by the same enemy. But they had knowledge. They had weapons. They showed us how to fight back. They gave us coordinates, 7 locations where ancient defense stations still exist. They told us the enemy comes every 50,000 years and it's almost time again. He coughed and Hyun gave him water. He drank deeply and continued. My crew, all 5,000 people, they stayed behind to help the last Kael'thar fight off a scout force. I was ordered back with the data. The AI was programmed to bring the ship home no matter what. I was supposed to wake up near Earth, but something must have gone wrong with the pod. The AI kept me sleeping until now. Hana didn't want to believe him. It sounded crazy, but something in his eyes, the way he spoke, told her he believed every word. Commander, she said carefully, nobody on Earth knows about this. There's been no threat, no invasion. Maybe the danger passed. Maybe you stopped it. Daehyun shook his head hard. No, the Kael'thar were certain. The Devourers don't stop. They don't negotiate. They come, they consume, they move on. If Earth hasn't seen them yet, it's because they're still on their way. How much time has passed since the ship left? 312 years, Ji-won answered. Daehyun closed his eyes and did calculations in his head. When he opened them again, he looked sick. Then we have maybe 6 months. Maybe less. Humanity needs to activate those defense stations now or everyone dies. The cargo bay was silent. Outside the ship, in the darkness of space, Earth floated peaceful and unaware. Hana looked at this man from 3 centuries ago, telling impossible stories about ancient enemies and alien weapons. But deep in her heart, she knew he was telling the truth. The ship wouldn't have come back for no reason. The AI had brought it home with its last sleeping pilot, carrying a warning humanity desperately needed to hear. We need to contact Earth, she said finally, right now. The message from asteroid K447 reached Earth 3 days later. It caused chaos. Government officials didn't believe it at first. A 300-year-old ship returning with a warning about alien machines that eat planets? It sounded like a bad movie, but the ship was real. The pilot was real. And when scientists started examining the data in the Taijin's computers, they found things that made them very scared. Hana brought Daehyun to Earth on a fast transport ship. He was still weak from his long sleep, but his mind was sharp. At the Global Defense Council headquarters in Geneva, he stood in front of military leaders and scientists from every major nation. Admiral Minho, the head of Earth's Colonial Defense Force, listened carefully as Daehyun told his story. He showed them images from the Taejin's memory banks. Pictures of the Veil Nebula, pictures of the Kael'thar. The Kael'thar were not human-like. They looked like tall crystals with light flowing inside them. Their cities were beautiful structures that seemed to grow from the ground like trees. But in the pictures, everything was destroyed. Broken crystals lay everywhere. Their worlds were dead and gray. They had been fighting for thousands of years, Daehyun explained, pointing at the screens. The Devourers came to their space long before humanity even existed. The Kael'thar built weapons, created defenses, tried everything, but they always lost. The enemy was too strong, too many. A scientist named Kyung raised her hand. What exactly are these Devourers? Are they a species? An empire? They're machines, Daehyun said, but not machines like we build. They're ancient, maybe millions of years old. The Kael'thar believed they were created by some long-dead civilization as weapons, but they kept working long after their creators were gone. Now they just follow their original purpose. Consume organic matter, break it down, use it for fuel and materials. How do they find their targets? Asked General Sunhee, a military officer. Radio signals, Daehyun answered. Any advanced civilization that uses radio waves eventually attracts them. It's like ringing a dinner bell. Earth has been broadcasting for over 300 years. They heard us. They're coming. The room became very quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. Every radio transmission, every television broadcast, every satellite communication had been calling these monsters to Earth. Admiral Minho spoke up. You said the Kael'thar gave you coordinates. Locations of defense stations. Show us. Daehyun pulled up a star map. 7 points glowed red across the galaxy. These are the Sentinel sites. The Kael'thar didn't build them. They found them, left by another ancient race. Maybe the same ones who made the Devourers, or maybe someone who fought them long ago. The Sentinels are weapons platforms that can stop the Devourers, but only if they're all activated. All 7? Kyung asked. All 7, Daehyun confirmed. They work as a network. Each one strengthens the others. If even one is missing, the defense is too weak. The Devourers will break through. Minho studied the map. These locations are scattered across hundreds of light years. Some are in systems we've never visited. It would take years to reach them all. We don't have years, Daehyun said firmly. According to the Kael'thar calculations, the Devourers should arrive in 6 months. Maybe less. We need to send teams immediately. An older politician stood up. This is all very concerning, Commander. But you're asking us to believe a story from aliens we've never met, about an enemy we've never seen. You want us to spend enormous resources on a threat that might not exist. What if this is all a misunderstanding? Daehyun's face turned red with anger. A misunderstanding? I watched 5,000 people stay behind to fight so I could bring this warning home. They died buying humanity time. The Kael'thar, an entire empire, was destroyed trying to stop these things. If you don't act now, Earth will be next. Hana, who had been standing quietly at the back of the room, stepped forward. Admiral Minho, I've spent time with Commander Daehyun. I've seen the ship. I've reviewed the data. I believe him. But more than that, I believe we can't afford not to act. If he's wrong, we waste some time and resources. If he's right and we do nothing, everyone dies. Minho nodded slowly. I agree. He looked around the room at the other leaders. I'm authorizing Project Resurrection. We'll send 7 teams to the Sentinel sites immediately. Captain Hana will lead the coordination. Commander Daehyun will provide technical support. Over the next few weeks, teams were assembled. The best pilots, engineers, and soldiers from every colony. They trained hard, learning what little was known about the Sentinels. Daehyun worked with them constantly, sharing everything the Kael'thar had taught him. Ji-won, the engineer from the mining station, was assigned to the first Sentinel team. She was excited but nervous. One night she found Daehyun alone in the training facility staring at a hologram of the Veil Nebula. Can't sleep? She asked. He shook his head. I keep thinking about my crew, wondering if they're really gone or if some of them survived somehow. The Kael'thar, Ji-won said carefully. Were they good people? I mean, good beings? Daehyun smiled sadly. They were scared and tired. Their entire civilization was dying, but they took time to help us anyway. They knew they were finished, but they wanted someone else to survive. They showed us their history, their culture, their mistakes. They made us promise to remember them. And the Sentinels? Ji-won asked. Do you really think they'll work? I saw one active, Daehyun said. The Kelthar showed me. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Power beyond imagination. But there's something you need to know about them. What? They won't activate for just anyone. The Kelthar couldn't use them. Their biology was wrong, but they detected human DNA and said it would work. The Sentinels were designed for species like us, younger races. The ancient builders must have known their creation would outlive them, so they made it respond to their inheritors. That's good news, right? Daehyun looked at her seriously. Maybe, but the Kelthar also warned me that activation wouldn't be simple. The Sentinels test their users. They need to make sure the inheritors are worthy. That they'll use the weapons wisely. Tests? What kind of tests? I don't know exactly. The Kelthar only saw images from other races who tried and failed. But the tests involved choices. Hard choices about sacrifice and cooperation. The Sentinels want to see what kind of species you are before they give you power that could destroy galaxies. Jiwon felt cold. And if we fail the tests? Then the Sentinels stay dormant, and the Devourers win. The 7 teams launched a month later. Each ship carried a crew of 30 people. They traveled to different corners of known space, racing against time. Communication between teams was difficult because of the distances, but they all knew what was at stake. Jiwon's team reached Sentinel Site 1 first. It was on a dead moon orbiting a red dwarf star. The moon had no atmosphere, no life, nothing but rocks and dust. But when they landed, their sensors picked up something underground. Something huge. They dug carefully using lasers and excavation equipment. After 3 days, they found it. A door made of black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly blue. This is it, Jiwon whispered over the radio to her team. Sentinel Site 1. She approached the door carefully. When she got close, the symbols brightened. She felt something scan her, a warm tingling that went through her whole body. Then the door opened silently, revealing a tunnel that went deep into the moon. Her team followed her inside. The tunnel was perfectly smooth, made from the same black metal. It went down for almost a kilometer. At the bottom, they found a chamber the size of a football stadium. In the center of the chamber stood the Sentinel. It looked like a tree made of crystal and metal, reaching up to the ceiling. Lights moved through it like rivers, pulsing in complex patterns. The air hummed with power. It's beautiful, someone said. Jiwon walked toward it slowly. As she got closer, the Sentinel's lights changed color from blue to gold. A voice spoke in her mind. It wasn't words exactly, more like pure meaning flowing directly into her thoughts. You seek activation. You must prove worthy. The test begins. The chamber changed. The walls showed images, projections of possible futures. Jiwon saw Earth being consumed by massive geometric shapes. She saw her family dying. She saw colonies burning. Then the Sentinel showed her a choice. A puzzle. Complex mathematical equations appeared in the air around her. If she solved them correctly, the Sentinel would activate. But the solution required something specific. It needed information from her team's computers, but there was a problem. To access that information, she would need to override safety protocols. The override would damage their ship's navigation system. They could activate the Sentinel, but they might not be able to get home. Jiwon's team stood behind her, waiting. They all understood the choice: safety and survival, or the mission. She thought about Daehyun's crew, the 5,000 people who stayed behind 300 years ago. She thought about the Kelthar, who gave everything to help a species they barely knew. Override the safety protocols, she said quietly. Her team moved quickly. They knew what it meant, but nobody argued. Within minutes, they had the data. Jiwon input the equations, solving the puzzle the Sentinel had given her. The Sentinel blazed with golden light. The humming sound became a song, beautiful and complex. 3 more Sentinel sites activated over the next month. Each team faced different tests, different choices. At Site 2, the team had to decide whether to trust each other or work alone. At Site 4, they needed to share resources fairly even when some team members wanted to take more. The Sentinels were teaching humanity lessons while preparing them for war. But Site 3 was different. Site 3 was where everything almost fell apart. Pilot Sunhee commanded the team to Site 3. She was young, only 28, but she had more flight hours than anyone else in the Colonial Defense Force. Her team trusted her completely. They had trained together for months and become like family. Site 3 was located inside a gas giant's storm system. The Sentinel was built on a floating platform deep in the planet's atmosphere, where the pressure could crush a normal ship like paper. Getting there was dangerous enough. But what they found made everything worse. The platform was unstable. Ancient systems were failing after millions of years. When Sun Hee's team landed, warning alarms immediately started ringing. The structural supports were breaking down. "We need to move fast," said Donga, her co-pilot. "This whole place could collapse any minute." They rushed into the Sentinel chamber. Like the others, it was beautiful and strange. The Sentinel tree pulsed with light, waiting. But the floor beneath it was cracked, and parts of the ceiling were falling. Sun Hee approached the Sentinel and felt the familiar scan. The voice spoke in her mind. "You seek activation. The test begins, but this platform fails. Time is limited. Choose wisely." The test appeared. It was a puzzle like the others, but more complex. Sun Hee needed to connect power conduits in a specific pattern while solving equations, but each connection took time. Precious time they didn't have. She worked quickly, her hands moving over the ancient controls. Behind her, her team watched nervously as more of the platform broke apart. The storm outside howled louder. "Sun Hee," Donga called. "The ship's readings show major structural damage. We need to go. Now." "Almost done," she said, focusing on the puzzle. Just a few more connections. But then something changed. The Sentinel's voice spoke again, different this time. Clearer. "Your team can leave safely now, but activation requires 17 more minutes. The platform will not survive. You must choose. Complete the activation alone and perish, or save yourself and fail the mission." Sun Hee's heart stopped. She looked at her team. They were all staring at her, understanding what the Sentinel had said. "No," Donga said immediately. "No way, we'll all stay and help. We'll work faster together." The Sentinel's voice was firm. "This test requires one sacrifice. More deaths serve no purpose. The choice is hers alone." A huge piece of the ceiling fell, crashing near their ship. The whole platform tilted. Sun Hee thought fast. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea their lives depended on these missions. She thought about the other Sentinels. If this one failed, the whole network would be weak. The Devourers would break through. She thought about Daehyun's crew who gave everything 300 years ago. She thought about Ji-won's team, stranded far from home but successful. "Donga," she said quietly, "take the team back to the ship." "What?" "No, Sun Hee, we're not leaving you." She turned to face him, her eyes wet but her voice steady. "That's an order. Someone has to activate this Sentinel, and someone has to tell Earth what happened here. That's you, all of you. We can find another way," a team member said desperately. "There is no other way," Sun Hee said. "The Sentinel is testing whether I'll put humanity above myself. Just like the other tests. This is what we signed up for." The platform shook violently. Alarms screamed from their ship. "They were out of time. Go!" Sun Hee shouted. "That's an order. Go!" Donga grabbed the others and pulled them toward the ship. They were crying, arguing, but he kept pushing them forward. At the ship's door, he looked back one last time. Sun Hee waved at him, a small, sad wave. Then she turned back to the Sentinel and focused on the work. The ship lifted off, fighting through the storm. From their cockpit, the team watched as the platform broke apart. They saw Sun Hee small and alone in the Sentinel chamber, working calmly even as the world fell apart around her. 15 minutes passed. 16. 17. Then a brilliant light exploded from deep in the gas giant. The Sentinel had activated. Its power shot upward through the atmosphere, creating a beam of pure energy that reached into space. The platform collapsed completely. Sun Hee was gone. Donga sat in the pilot seat, tears running down his face, but he flew the ship home. Because that's what she ordered. That's what the mission required. When news of Sun Hee's death reached Earth, people mourned. But they also understood. The Sentinels weren't just weapons. They were teaching humanity what it took to survive against impossible odds. Sacrifice, courage, putting others before yourself. At Site 5, scientist Kyung was preparing for her own test. She had heard about Ji-won's choice and Sun Hee's sacrifice. She knew the Sentinels were evaluating humanity's character, not just their technical skills. Site 5 was different from the others. It was built into an asteroid field, hidden among thousands of rocks. Finding it took weeks of careful searching. When they finally located the right asteroid, they found something surprising. The Sentinel here was connected to dozens of smaller stations throughout the asteroid field. Each station had its own controls, its own puzzles, but they all needed to be activated together, in perfect synchronization. This isn't a test of sacrifice, Kyung realized. It's a test of coordination, teamwork on a massive scale. She split her team into small groups, sending them to different stations. Each group had to solve their own puzzle while staying in perfect timing with the others. If anyone went too fast or too slow, the whole activation would fail. It was incredibly difficult. Communication delays made coordination hard. Different puzzles had different complexity levels. Some teams finished quickly and had to wait. Others struggled and needed help, but they worked together. Teams that finished early talked the slower teams through their puzzles. They shared information, shared solutions, shared encouragement. Nobody tried to rush ahead. Nobody gave up. After 6 hours of intense work, all stations were ready. Kyung gave the countdown. 3, 2, 1, activate. Every station lit up at once. The asteroid field glowed like a constellation of stars. Energy flowed between the stations, connecting them all to the central Sentinel. The light grew brighter and brighter until it was almost blinding. The Sentinel's voice spoke to all of them simultaneously, reaching into every mind. You have proven cooperation. You have shown that your species can work as one, despite differences and difficulties. This is essential. The Devourers are many. You must be united. Site 5 was active. 5 Sentinels now blazed across the galaxy, waiting for the last 2 to join the network. But something else happened that Kyung didn't expect. As the Sentinel activated, it shared information. Data flowed into the team's computers, maps, diagrams, technical specifications. Kyung studied the data for hours. What she found made her excited and scared at the same time. I know how the Sentinels work, she told her team. They're not just weapons. They're a network. Each one strengthens the others. When all 7 are active, they create a defensive barrier around Earth. The Devourers won't be able to get through. That's good news, someone said. Yes, Kyung agreed. But there's a problem. The barrier isn't permanent. It will hold for a few months, maybe a year. After that, the Sentinels will need to recharge. It takes decades for them to build up power again. So we'll be defenseless after the barrier falls? Kyung looked at the data again. Not if we learn from the Devourers. The Sentinels are sharing information about the enemy, how they work, how they think, their weaknesses. If we study this data, we can build our own weapons based on what we learn. She sent her findings back to Earth immediately. Admiral Minho received the news with mixed feelings. The Sentinels would protect them, but only temporarily. Humanity needed to use that time wisely. Meanwhile, at Site 6 and Site 7, the remaining teams worked frantically. Each day brought them closer to the deadline. Earth's deep space sensors had started picking up strange signals from the edge of the solar system. Signals that matched the descriptions of Devourer scouts. They were running out of time. Site 6 activated after another difficult test involving trust and honesty. The team had to admit their greatest fears to the Sentinel, facing their own weaknesses. It was psychologically brutal, but they succeeded. 6 Sentinels active. 1 to go, but Site 7 was the farthest away. The team racing toward it faced unexpected problems. Their ship's engine failed halfway there. Repairs took precious days. When they finally reached the site, they had only hours before the Devourers would arrive at Earth. Commander Bora led this final team. She was a soldier, tough and experienced. But even she felt the weight of responsibility as they landed on the icy planet, where the last Sentinel waited. The Sentinel chamber here was the most beautiful of all. Ice crystals covered everything, reflecting the Sentinel's light and rainbow colors. It looked like a frozen cathedral. Bora approached the Sentinel. The scan began. The voice spoke. You are the last. The network awaits completion. Your test is simple but absolute. Trust in your fellow inheritors. Trust that they have prepared you for what comes next. They came from beyond Neptune, sliding through space like shadows made solid. The Devourers were not ships in any way humans understood ships. They were geometric shapes, massive constructs that seemed to break the laws of physics, cubes the size of cities, pyramids that bent light around them, spheres that pulsed with dark energy. Admiral Minho watched them approach from the command center in orbit around Earth. Every screen showed the same nightmare, Thousands of devourer constructs moving in perfect formation. They ignored the outer planets, heading straight for the inner system. Heading for Earth. They're targeting Jupiter's moons first, an officer reported. Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, all the ice moons with underground oceans. Organic matter, Daehyun said quietly. He stood next to Minho, his face pale. Those oceans have simple life forms. Bacteria may be complex organisms. The devourers need organic material for processing. Can the Sentinels stop them? Hana asked. She commanded one of Earth's defense fleets now, her ship positioned near Mars. The barrier is active, Kyung answered over the communication channel. She was monitoring the Sentinel network from Earth. But they haven't reached it yet. We're about to find out if it works. The first Devourer construct touched the Sentinel barrier near Mars orbit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the barrier flared brilliant blue, pushing back against the machine. The construct shuddered and stopped. It's working, someone cheered. But Daehyun didn't celebrate. He watched the screen carefully. The Devourer wasn't trying to break through. It was studying the barrier, testing it with different energy frequencies. More constructs arrived. They surrounded the barrier completely, thousands of them creating a sphere around Earth's territory. Then they began harvesting Jupiter's moons. Human ships could only watch. If they left the barrier's protection, the Devourers would destroy them instantly. They were trapped, safe but helpless. They're being methodical, Daehyun explained to Minho. The Kael'thar described this. First they secure the area, then they study the defense. Finally they attack in force using whatever they learned. How long do we have? Days, maybe a week, Minho made a decision. We can't just hide behind the barrier. We need information about them. We need to understand how they work. He looked at his officers. I want volunteers for a raid mission. We're going to attack one of their harvesters. The room was silent for a moment. Then Hana spoke up. I'll lead it. No, Bora said firmly. She had just returned from Site 7. You're too valuable as a fleet commander. Let me take a ground team. We'll land on one of the Devourer constructs, gather data, and get out. Minho nodded. Assemble your team, Commander. You leave in 2 hours. Bora picked 12 soldiers, all experienced in dangerous operations. Hyun, the medic who helped wake Daehyun, volunteered to join them. They needed someone who could analyze biological systems. Their ship was small and fast, designed to avoid detection. They slipped through the barrier and approached the nearest Devourer harvester. It was working on Europa, breaking down the ice moon piece by piece. Up close, the harvester was even more disturbing. It wasn't smooth metal like a normal ship. Its surface crawled and shifted almost like skin. Openings appeared and disappeared. Parts of it seemed organic, mixed with the mechanical components. That's disgusting, someone muttered. They found a landing spot and attached to the harvester's hull using magnetic clamps. Bora led the team inside through what looked like a maintenance port. It opened too easily, like the construct didn't care about intruders. Inside was dark and wet. The corridors were not built for any specific size or shape. They twisted and curved in impossible ways. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. Stay together, Bora ordered. Take samples of everything. We need to understand this thing. Hyen scraped samples from the walls and examined them under a portable microscope. What he saw made him gasp. Bora, you need to see this, she looked at the screen. The sample showed cells, biological cells, but they were mixed with mechanical components. Tiny machines worked alongside organic tissue, so integrated they were almost the same thing. It's not pure machine, Hyun said, his voice shaking. The Devourers use biological material as part of their structure. These cells, they're from dozens of different species, maybe hundreds. You mean they're made from their victims? Yes, every species they consume becomes part of them. These constructs are graves, walking tombs of extinct civilizations. The Devourers force the dead to serve them forever. The team stood in horrified silence. They were inside a monster made from countless victims, all forced to continue existing in this twisted form. But Hyun kept examining the samples. His scientific mind pushed through the horror. Wait, this is important. The biological components are the key. They process energy. The mechanical parts gather and transport material, but the organic parts convert it to usable power. If we could disrupt the biological systems, we could kill them, Bora finished. They pushed deeper into the harvester, collecting more samples. In what might have been a central chamber, they found something even more disturbing. Tanks filled with liquid, and floating in that liquid were creatures. Some looked like the Kael'thar that Daehyun had described. Others were shapes and forms humanity had never seen. Storage, Hyun whispered. They're storing harvested organisms here before processing them. One of the tanks held something that looked almost human. A child preserved but not alive, waiting to be broken down and absorbed into the collective. Bora felt rage building inside her. This wasn't just an enemy to fight. This was evil, pure and simple. The Devourers didn't just kill. They erased entire histories, turning their victims into raw material. We have enough data, she said through clenched teeth. Let's go. But as they turned to leave, alarms rang through the harvester. The walls began moving, shifting to block their exit. The Devourers had detected them. Run! Bora shouted. They sprinted through the twisting corridors. Behind them, parts of the harvester came alive, pursuing them like antibodies attacking an infection. Mechanical arms reached out. Organic tendrils tried to grab them. 2 soldiers were caught, pulled into the walls. Their screams were cut short. The rest kept running, firing their weapons to clear a path. They reached their ship and detached, engines at full power. The harvester tried to hold them, but they broke free and raced back toward the barrier. Other Devourer constructs moved to intercept. Energy beams lanced through space. One hit their ship's wing, tearing it off. They spun out of control. We're not going to make it, the pilot said. Then Hana's fleet appeared, emerging from the barrier. Her ships laid down, covering fire, hitting the Devourers with everything they had. It didn't destroy the constructs, but it bought time. Grab them and pull back, Hana ordered. A rescue ship snatched Bora's damaged vessel with a tractor beam and dragged it back through the barrier. The moment they crossed, the Devourers stopped pursuing. They returned to their positions, patient and methodical. Back on Earth, Hyun and Kyung analyzed the samples immediately. They worked for hours, barely sleeping, driven by the knowledge that time was running out. I've found it, Hyun finally announced. A weakness. The biological components in the Devourers are forced to work together. Hundreds of different species all integrated into one system. But they're not naturally compatible. The Devourers use energy fields to suppress rejection responses. So if we disrupt those energy fields, like Young said, the biological components will attack each other. The constructs will tear themselves apart from the inside. Minho received the news with grim satisfaction. Can we weaponize this? We can modify our weapons to emit the right frequency, Kyung said. But we'll need to get close to the Devourers. Very close. The effect doesn't travel far. That same day, the Devourers made their move. They had finished studying the Sentinel barrier. Now they attacked it with overwhelming force. Thousands of constructs fired at the barrier simultaneously. The energy shield held, but it flickered. Cracks appeared, small ones at first, then larger. The barrier is weakening, Kyung reported, panic in her voice. At this rate, it will collapse in days. Daehyun watched the screens, his face showing no surprise. This is what happened to the Kael'thar. The Devourers are patient. They probe for weakness, adapt their tactics, then overwhelm you. Then we attack now, Minho decided. Before the barrier falls. We take the fight to them. That's suicide, someone protested. We'll be destroyed. We'll be destroyed anyway if we wait, Hana said. At least this way we're doing something. We're fighting back. Minho stood and addressed everyone in the command center. The Sentinels tested us. They wanted to see if humanity was worthy of survival. Well, now's the time to prove it. Not just to ancient machines, but to ourselves. We're not going to hide and hope. We're going to fight, he looked at Daehyun. Your crew bought us 300 years. Let's make sure their sacrifice meant something. Daehyun nodded slowly. For the first time since waking up, he smiled. They would like that. Every ship humanity could spare was called to battle. Military vessels, civilian transports modified with weapons, even old mining ships equipped with the new frequency disruptors. If it could fly and fight, it joined the fleet. Pilots kissed their families goodbye. Engineers checked weapons one last time. Soldiers wrote final messages just in case. The first wave of human ships hit the Devourer lines like a hammer against stone. Missiles and energy beams filled space with light and fire. The Devourers responded immediately, their weapons cutting through ships like they were made of paper. Hana watched a dozen ships explode in the first minute. Friends, colleagues, people she had trained with, gone in flashes of light. Keep pushing forward, she ordered. Get close enough to use the disruptors. Her ship dove toward a massive cube-shaped construct. Devourer weapons locked onto them, but human pilots flew with desperate courage, dodging and weaving through the attacks. They got within range. The disruptor weapons fired, invisible frequencies that struck the Devourer construct. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cube began to shudder. Inside the construct, the biological components started fighting. Cells from different species, forced to work together for millions of years, suddenly recognized each other as foreign. The rejection response was violent and immediate. The cube tore itself apart from the inside. Explosions rippled across its surface. It spun out of control and crashed into another Devourer construct. It works, someone shouted over the communications channel. The disruptors work. Hope spread through the human fleet. Ship after ship closed in on the Devourers, sacrificing safety for range, dying to get close enough to use the new weapons. Each successful hit destroyed a construct, and each destruction gave other ships a better chance. But the Devourers were learning. They began keeping distance, adapting their tactics. Their massive numbers meant that even with the disruptors, humans were still losing badly. For every Devourer destroyed, 10 human ships were blown apart. In the command center, Daehyun watched the battle with growing despair. This was what happened to the Kael'thar. This was how civilizations ended, fighting bravely but hopelessly against an enemy that never stopped, never tired, never cared. Then he had an idea. A terrible, desperate idea. The Taejin, he said suddenly. Minho looked at him. What about it? The ship still has Kael'thar technology in its systems. Data, programs, maybe even weapon designs. When the AI brought me back, it preserved everything. We could use it as a weapon against the Devourers. How? Daehyun pulled up diagrams on the screen. The Kael'thar fought the Devourers for thousands of years. They developed viruses, computer programs designed to corrupt Devourer systems. I saw them use it once. The virus spreads through the collective network, turning constructs against each other. And you think this virus is still in the Taejin's computers? I know it is. The Kael'thar gave us everything they had, but there's a problem. To infect the Devourers, we need to upload the virus directly into their central nexus, the heart of their network. Minho understood immediately. That's a suicide mission. No ship could survive that deep in their formation. The Taejin is a ghost ship, Daehyun said quietly. It came back from the dead once. Maybe it can do it again. Maybe it can carry the virus where we need it to go. They worked fast. Engineers modified the Taejin, loading it with the Kael'thar virus and additional explosives. The old colony ship, which had traveled farther than any human vessel before, would make one final journey. But someone needed to pilot it. Someone had to guide the ship through the Devourer fleet, avoid their weapons and reach the Nexus. Someone had to upload the virus and make sure it worked. Lieutenant Dongha volunteered immediately. He was Sun Hee's co-pilot, the man who watched her sacrifice herself at Site 3. He had been carrying that grief ever since. Let me do this, he said. Let me finish what she started. Others joined him. 20 volunteers, all knowing they wouldn't come back. They were engineers, soldiers, scientists. Some were old veterans. Some were barely out of training. But they all understood what was at stake. Daehyun met with them before they left. He shook each person's hand, looking into their eyes. Thank you, he said simply. You're doing what my crew did 300 years ago. You're buying time for humanity to survive. They would be honored to know that Taejin is in your hands. Dongha smiled sadly. Tell them we were here. Tell them humans don't run. The Taejin launched from Earth orbit. The old ship moved slowly at first, its ancient engines warming up. Then it accelerated, heading straight into the thickest part of the Devourer swarm. The human fleet saw it coming and understood. They changed their tactics, focusing all their attacks on creating a path for the ghost ship. Thousands of ships died to give the Taejin a clear route. Hana's flagship led the charge, her weapons blazing. For the Taejin, she shouted. Clear the way. The Devourers realized something was different about this ship. Their attacks focused on it, trying to destroy it before it could reach the center of their formation. Energy beams struck the Taejin's shields, but the old ship kept going. Inside, Dongha flew with skill that would have made Sun Hee proud. He dodged and weaved, pushing the ship to its limits. His crew worked frantically, rerouting power, repairing damage, keeping the ship alive just a little longer. They passed through the outer defenses. Then the middle layers. The Nexus was close now. A massive construct at the center of the swarm. It looked like a city made of nightmares, biological and mechanical components twisted together into something that hurt to look at. We're not going to make it, someone said. The Taejin was falling apart. Fires burned throughout the ship. Half the engines were destroyed. Yes, we are, Donga said firmly. We didn't come this far to fail now. They crashed into the Nexus like a missile. The impact drove them deep into the construct's interior. The ship's hull screamed with stress, breaking apart section by section. But they were inside. Inside the heart of the Devourer network. Donga and his team ran through corridors that looked like the inside of a living creature. They fought their way past defense systems, both mechanical and organic. 3 people fell, then 5, then 10. Finally, Donga reached the central control point. It wasn't a computer like humans built. It was a pulsing mass of biological tissue connected to machine interfaces, processing information from millions of Devourer constructs. He connected the Kael'thar virus directly to the Nexus. The upload began, but it was slow, so slow. The Nexus realized what was happening and tried to stop it. Parts of the room came alive, trying to disconnect the link. Donga and the 3 surviving crew members fought back, protecting the connection with their lives. One by one, they fell. The last crew member, an engineer named Taiwu, used his body to shield the connection as organic tentacles pulled him away. Donga was alone now, holding the connection with his hands as the room tried to kill him. Blood ran from wounds all over his body, but he kept holding on. The upload reached 90%. 95%. Something grabbed his legs, pulling him away from the connection. He held on with everything he had, his fingers breaking from the pressure. 98%. Son, he whispered, thinking of his friend. I'm coming. 100%. Upload complete. The Kael'thar virus exploded through the Devourer network like wildfire. Millions of constructs received the corrupted code simultaneously. Their systems crashed. Their collective intelligence fractured into millions of confused individuals. And then something unexpected happened. The biological components inside the Devourers, all those absorbed species from countless worlds, woke up, not fully alive but conscious enough to remember what they had been, conscious enough to be angry. The Devourers began attacking each other. Constructs that had worked together for millions of years suddenly became enemies. They tore at each other with the same efficiency they had used against organic life. The human fleet watched in amazement as the massive swarm fell into chaos. Devourer weapons designed to consume planets were now used against their own kind. Pull back, Minho ordered. Let them destroy themselves. The fleet retreated behind the Sentinel barrier and watched. The battle lasted for hours. Explosions lit up space like a second sun. Massive constructs broke apart. The Nexus, with the Tajan still embedded in it, exploded in a blast that could be seen from Earth. When it was over, the Devourer swarm was gone. Scattered debris floated where thousands of constructs had been. A few damaged ships tried to escape, but human forces destroyed them easily. The threat was ended. Humanity had survived. On Earth, people watched the sky as the danger passed. They didn't understand everything that happened, but they knew they had been saved by heroes, by people who chose to fight rather than hide. In the command center, Hana stood next to Daehyun. They both looked at the screen showing where the Taijin had been. Your ship saved us, she said quietly. Your crew and Donga's crew. They all saved us, Daehyun nodded slowly. Tears ran down his face, but he was smiling. They did what they set out to do 300 years ago. They protected humanity. Minho approached them. Commander Daehyun, I'm sending a message to all of humanity. What should I tell them? What should I say about what happened here? Daehyun thought for a moment. Then he repeated the words Dongha had said to him. Tell them we were here. Tell them humans don't run. The message went out to every colony, every ship, every home on Earth. People heard about the Taijin's first journey 300 years ago. They learned about Daehyun's crew who sacrificed everything. They heard about the Kael'thar, who gave their knowledge to a younger species.